Hey, we're here at the OSTC Collision Repair Tool Crib. Here we've got hundreds of different tools for you to learn. Some of those tools are common tools that you would use no matter what it is that you're working on. It could be on a car or a truck, a boat, a plane, or even a toy wagon. You still need screwdrivers and wrenches and things like that are uncommon. And it doesn't matter if you're working on the mechanical aspect or if you're doing body repair. Some of those things, like screwdrivers and wrenches, are common, and other things are more specialty tools. Like in collision repair, we'll use body hammers, or we'll use spray guns and sanding blocks and welders. Those are more specific to the type of repairs that we do. Now, I gave you guys a challenge. I challenged you to try to stump the teacher. I asked you to come up with 10 items that you could find around the house, something that you could consider a tool, like a pair of scissors, that's not necessarily used to fix a car. And some of you guys came up with some really creative ideas to try to stump me, and a few of you made me stretch quite a bit to try to relate the tools that you found back to automotive. So it would be like, scissors are like this in automotive. You showed me something that was from your home, a binder clip. My task is to figure out what is a binder clip like in our universe. Power tools were probably the hardest. I was actually thinking more along the line of hand tools when I gave you the assignment, but well, let's just see how I did. So what I did was go through all of your slideshows, at least the ones that were turned in a reasonable amount of time. While it would be great for me to respond to each one of the slides that you uploaded, it would take me a long time to go through nearly 500 slides. So not going to do that. But what I did was boil them down into a list of tools that you guys suggested. There were lots of them in common, and then there's some really creative ones. So I tried to come up with a list that represented most of the class. Now, these tools aren't going to be in any specific order. They're kind of random, the way I put them in a list, so they're not going to be like in systems or anything like that. But I'm going to go through as many as I can of the tools that you suggested, the items that you found around the house, and try to liken them to tools or equipment that we use here in the shop. All right, let's get started. So somebody sent a picture of tape that they might have around the house. Of course, we use automotive masking tape in the shop. Somebody else put a picture of a kitchen knife, and we use all kinds of cutting tools, a utility knife and razor blades. And somebody else put a picture of a paintbrush, and we use acid brushes, paint brushes, touch-up brushes, and even air brushes in shop. Water bottles we can use for all different kinds of things. Here I'm using a water bottle to do some wet sanding. And somebody else put a bowl, cup. We use mixing cups. These are pre-measured for mixing paint. Somebody put a clothespin, used to clamp on a clothesline. And we use all kinds of clamping pliers. These are called vice grips. Here I'm going to use it to clamp a couple of pieces of metal together. Another student put a pair of earbuds, and here to protect our ears in the shop we use headphones and earplugs. We'll use vacuum cleaners when we're detailing a car. We also use carpet shampooers or extractors that use water and a vacuum to pull liquid out of a carpet, kind of like using a shampooer at home or a vacuum cleaner at home. Another student put a coat rack or a hat rack. We actually have one in the shop that we use to hang the hoses for our carpet extractor. And a can opener, that's pretty common in a house. We use a power tool called an air chisel. It has a bit that's designed for cutting sheet metal. That's what I'm doing here. A plunger. Somebody put a plunger. Well, we don't have a plunger, but we do have suction cup, very similar. Can be used either to pull dents out of a panel or to install a windshield. toothbrush. Yep, we have those at home. Here are wire brushes. Don't confuse that with a toothbrush. Those are for brushing or cleaning metal. But we do use toothbrushes and a whole assortment of brushes for detailing a car. Another student put fishing rod holders on the wall. Well, on our wall, we've got all kinds of holders, things that store tools, lots of different things that are similar to a fishing rod holder. Erasers, yep. We even have an eraser. This is called an eraser wheel. It's used on a power tool to remove adhesives and other things from a painted surface. This was a specialty tool. This isn't the one that a student posted, but very similar. I don't know what it was for, but we use specialty wrenches all the time. This one is for disassembling a spray gun. You're going to learn how to disassemble and reassemble a spray gun. Another student posted Allen wrenches. Of course, we use those. We also have Allen sockets or hex sockets. This is a hole punch for paper. We don't have to punch holes in paper, but we do have to punch holes in sheet metal all the time, especially for performing plug welds with a MIG welder. Another student had a hand reamer. I thought that was pretty interesting. We do use hand reamers. It helps to clean out a hole in a piece of sheet metal. We also have another pretty cool tool that cleans out burrs on the back side of a hole when you can't get to them from the back. Pretty neat. Another student posted a light on a house. Well, we don't use that, but we do have all kinds of different lighting, and this one's an LED light. You can see it's got a plug, but actually that's the charger. It's battery operated. Another student had lifts for his dirt bike, jack stands in a lift. We have jack stands, and of course an electro-hydraulic lift, a hoist, to pick cars up off the floor. You'll learn how to use those as well. This is a block plane that's used to plane wood. We don't plane wood in class, but we have to do something very similar with these large blocks. Sanding blocks. We have a whole assortment. We do an awful lot of sanding and shaping in our business, and those are some of the tools that you'll learn to use. Another student had something from a restaurant, looked almost like a scraper for a grill or something. We scrape with putty knives in our class. That student also had a meat tenderizer. We don't have to tenderize meat, but we do have hammers that we use, very similar kind of thing. These are body hammers used to shape sheet metal, including one that, well, look at the face of this one, the other side, very similar to a meat tenderizer. Look at that face. A 2x4. Somebody said 2x4. Well, truth is, we use 2x4 and other blocks of wood all the time. Here's one use. Another piece of wood we use is to stir paint. Kind of the way you would in a kitchen using a wire whisk. Now, we don't really use plastic bags, from a grocery store, but we do have special plastic bags. In this case, they're for a machine called a solvent recycler. We take our dirty paint solvent and we recycle it, reclaim it, and reuse it. This is kind of like a giant, crock pot that boils the liquid and recaptures it, kind of like a distillery. Somebody had something that looked like an antique cake decorator for frosting. And of course we don't use frosting, but very similar. We use this is a specialty caulk gun or a seam sealer gun. This tube has two different components in it. One of them is the seam sealer or the caulk, and another one is a catalyst, a hardener. And this squeezes the material out. Cheese grater. Somebody put a cheese grater. Well, guess what? We have what we call a cheese grater, used to shape body filler when it's still soft, kind of like grating cheese. We use chisels for different things. In some cases, we use it to split seams in sheet metal, kind of like you would split wood with an axe. At home, you might use a Dremel tool. In a body shop, you'd use a die grinder. Butter knife used to spread, right, butter or jelly or something, and we use spreaders for body filler. I'm not sure what you use avocado oil for in the kitchen, maybe to keep stuff from sticking. Same thing with penetrating oil or lithium grease. Isopropyl alcohol is a solvent that you have around the house. We have different kinds of solvents for water-based paints and for solvent-based paints. Somebody else put magnet. Well, we use magnets too. Tongs. I don't have a pair of tongs like this at the shop, but very similar. A pair of needle nose pliers. Somebody else had riding boots, like motocross boots, I think is what they had in the picture. And we have work boots, very similar. These are steel-toed shoes. Soda straw, or a straw for penetrating oil, like WD-40 or PB Blaster or something like that. We do use steel wool in the shop, but more frequently we use a tool called a Scotch-Brite pad or scuff pad for scuffing or sanding parts. We also have a Sawzall. We use it every once in a while, but more commonly we use an air saw. It's like a mini Sawzall, but it uses compressed air. Don't use this heat gun for your hair. It blows about 500 degrees, not exactly the same as your hairdryer at home. Somebody stumped me pretty good with a peeler, a vegetable peeler. The closest I could come up with is something that's used to shave the surface of the paint, called a nib file. Not exactly the same though, huh? So that was a stumper. I said don't use fork because it's a utensil. I didn't think of it as a tool, but I guess it is a tool. The closest I could come up with was this trim panel tool. Of course, my example was a pair of scissors, and several of you use scissors. Scissors cut paper, while tin snips cut sheet metal. A student put an oven. And actually, our paint booth is an oven. It bakes the paint or force dries the paint after we're done spraying. And a couple years ago, we actually used a toaster oven to bake parts, small parts that we had powder coated. The student brought in some powder coat and an oven. Bandana. Somebody put bandana. We've been using those and something like it a lot lately. Of course, in our shop, we use something similar. Dust masks and respirators. Well, I hope you enjoyed our Stump the Teacher tool identification video. It was fun to make. It took way longer than it should have. Crazy crashing computers and all of the rest. But hopefully you had some fun with it, and hopefully you're learning something about the tools that we use in class and in our business, in collision repair and in automotive. Hopefully you're starting to learn some of that, and I hope that you find that interesting. I will see you very soon in class.